Hey guys, it's Full Crew, and on today's episode, or video I should say, not episode, we are going to be talking about the book The Charmer's Root by Roger J. Horne. I just finished reading this, and it was such a really good book, and I urge you all to read it when you can. But I just want to do a little review video on it and talk about some of the good points that he hits in this book. We are also featuring Sophie. She's deaf, she can't hear. But I love her to death. But anyway, we're going to be going over some key points that I thought were really important in the book. So first off, I'd really like to start on this process that he includes called hollowing the leaves. So this is kind of like a ritualistic practice that you would perform to bring strength and a spirit back into the plants. And this would be something that you could do after you had just bought plants from like a store, or you ordered them online, anything of that nature. It's basically breathing life back into the plants to help aid in your spell work, calling out to the plant spirit that's in the plant. And then I'm not going to go over the entire ritual, but I think it's actually really important that you do this. This is something I do in my personal practice, where I just kind of hold the herbs and I like kind of pray or call out to the plant spirits to help guide me to do whatever I need them to do in my spell work. And then I'll breathe into them, like breathing life into them, kind of like CPR, but not CPR. But it's something that I would definitely urge you all to do. It's definitely helped in my spell work, and I feel like I've gotten better results with it. Secondly, the way he talks about IDing plants. So he goes about talking about different plants and how they grow and what they look like. So for example, I got some notes over here. For Jupiter, so jovial plants are usually tower over other plants. Mercurial plants usually have hairy bodies with fine leaves, and they have wing or feather shaped leaves sometimes. Saturn or Saturnine plants grow substantial root systems with large tap roots, usually have poisonous qualities, and they grow in waste places, so things like roadsides, disturbed areas like sidewalks, places you wouldn't think to find something pretty. And this also helps, the way he describes it is this helps develop, to give a starting point to develop your own lore about plants in your area. So developing a starting point to where if you find a plant and you identify it, you can kind of align it with these different planetary guidelines to help you establish kind of what qualities does this plant have, and you can kind of build upon that, which I think is really cool. He also goes on to talk about how using plants. So balancing natures of the plants. So in herbalism, you have energetics, so like cooling, drying, warming, that sort of nature. But when it comes to spell work, you would maybe want to, the way he describes it, is trying to like balance out the negative effects that may be that may come from spell work, if that makes sense. So you'd want to add an herb to kind of counteract that, to balance it out. And I'm not going to go into detail about how he explains that. I think that's something that you as the reader should read. So I'm definitely urging you guys to read this book for sure. He does go on to talk about witch flight a little bit too. And the way he talks about it, I like the way he describes it as it's almost like a muscle that you have to learn to control and unclench. It's not something that you can force it to do. It's always with you. You just have to surrender to the state, to the being, to the physicality of it. You just have to surrender yourself to it. It's always within you, and if you try to force it, obviously it's not going to work. You just have to surrender yourself to it. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because personally I feel like sometimes when I'm trying to achieve witch flight, I kind of try to force myself, and I'm like, what am I doing? I can't do this. So you kind of just have to surrender yourself to it and just ease into it. And he offers different methods to try, including like doing like a tea before bed, and also doing like using ointments and flight ointments and whatnot. One thing I also thought was really cool is he talks about essences. So these were coined by Dr. Edward Bach, I think. So flower essences. People use them in medicine, where it's essentially like the essence of a plant that is the plant is put into on top of water, not submerged, just on top. And water and sunlight basically pull the essence into the water, and then you would discard the plant material, and that would be your stock essence, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Someone might know more about flower essences than I do, for sure, but I thought they were really interesting. And he also has this concept of called a plant-veiled stone, which is also known as a serpent stone. Now, I think some people might call these a hag stone, but I'm not sure if he's referring to the same thing or not. But the idea was that basically this is a stone that's found under plants or nearby plants or in their root systems. And basically it's a safe way to work with toxic plants in a nature to whereas you don't have to touch them, you don't have to ingest them to work with that energy, because this stone is imbued with this energy, which I thought that was kind of cool, because obviously there's some plants you can't work with that are really toxic and might give, you know, bad effects if you get them inside your body, and we don't want that. Second to last though, he talks about plant spirit water, which I thought was really interesting. I won't go into too much depth about it, of course, because we're just doing a review, but it's really good for baneful and toxic plants. It's one of the safest options. So basically it's an exchange of offerings, like you giving the plant water, you let the water run over yourself and over the bottle in exchange for the plant to bless the sealed water that you have left out by the plant. So I thought that was pretty interesting. To basically, it's asking the plant to bless the water so you can use the essence of that plant without having to harvest it or deconstruct it or damage it, or if it's toxic, that way you can actually work with plant matter without having to, you know, eventually maybe even, you know, have those toxic side effects if it was to get into your body. Lastly, my personal thoughts, it definitely teaches more about plant spirits and how they should be protected and how they should be respected. Some of the stuff I was already doing in my personal practice, but he goes into way more depth about these different ritualistic, like, especially when it comes to like saning or consecrating something and being very specific in its purpose and making sure that, you know, you get it right down to the T, because if you don't, then it might throw off what you're trying to do in your spell work later. He also goes into different details about how to make different, you know, preparations like tinctures, oils, liniments, balms, salves, that sort of thing. And then he also has a little a little plant section at the back that includes numerous plants that go over kind of their lore and how their common names, and some of them have really silly names from back in the day, I think. I think it's definitely essential for Green Path witches, and it's definitely something that I would recommend overall that someone reads. And I would definitely give it a solid 9 out of 10. So I really hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about this book, and I hope it urges you to go buy it. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.